Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bill Jordan here, another edition of Keeping America Beautiful with allies, tradespeople, and professionals in our area. And today we have a very special guest, all the way from Paterson, New Jersey. His name is Angelo. He's not really Angelo. He's known, I think he calls himself the credit doctor. So today, let's bring Angelo on and let him tell you about the 5 things that debt collectors don't want you to know. Hi, Angelo. How you doing today?
Hello, Bill. I'm doing great. Good to be here on your podcast. How you doing?
Well, you know, it's a beautiful snowy day, so I'm doing fine.
Great, great. Mm-hmm.
So Angelo, tell us, what's the name of your company?
The name of my company is the Faithful Credit Repair Group.
Okay, and what's that all about?
Now, it's about helping people understand the importance, number one, of having good credit. And so we focus on people who are struggling with credit, having bad credit. We help them understand how they can actually get their credit repaired. We educate them in that process, and we also provide a service and helping them get to that status where they have good credit.
So now, credit repair, that's a pretty important subject, isn't it?
It's very important. I mean, the last, I believe it was in 2015, 2016, the last study that came out said that over half of Americans live with subpar credit. That's like a score of 650 and below. So it's very important.
Okay, so could you give us, I know this is off the topic, but in your opinion, how do we get in such a low credit status? So what is it, a lifestyle concepts or environment? What is it?
Well, I truly believe it comes down, you can say basically lifestyle, but it comes down with how we manage our finances or lack thereof. And it may come from a lack of education as far as understanding the importance of knowing what your finances are all about, understanding the importance of having good credit and knowing what that is and how to obtain that. Because we're not really educated in that process, whether it be through the schools or through our home, growing up in our home and areas like that, we're really never taught the importance of managing our finances. A lot of times we're just told, go to school, go to college, get an education, get a job, and things like that. But we never really talk about how to manage the money that we spend.
So when you say, I'm making a leap here, but are you saying there's a thing called credit management?
Yes, absolutely. It is a big thing as far as credit management because credit is so important. Most people like in my case, didn't know what credit was really, was really about because we never really talked about it in the schools or, in areas of clubs or membership or things that we were a part of, never really discussed that matter. So credit is foreign to a lot of people. They just know that when they think in terms of credit, they may think in terms of credit cards, things like that, but never understand how credit actually affects their future, good or bad.
Now, when you said in your case, what do you mean in your case? I mean, were you a victim of being a poor credit person?
Absolutely. Growing up again, I was never educated. Coming up in the school, I'll say in the schools that I went to in my home, my parents didn't really talk to me about the importance of, credit and how that would affect, my future. I didn't learn it in school or even in the church I went to. We didn't really talk about that. In church they talk about paying tithes, which I believe in, and that 10%, but nobody really taught me how to manage the other 90%. So in my case, you know what I'm saying? In my case, it was trial and error. And I fell to the side of error and ended up with horrible credit. I mean, horrible credit. And that's why I am, that's why I started the business, because I was able to take my bad credit, right, and actually change that situation around by educating myself on what I need to do to fix and or repair my credit. And after being able to do that and taking my, like I said, when I finally realized how bad my credit was, my scores was in the low 400s. But after educating myself in a 2-year period, I was able to go from 400 to 800 plus without paying any, debts or bills that was on my credit card, just using what the law said were my rights.
Well, now that's amazing. So you're telling me that our host was also a person with poor credit.
Yes, I was my first client.
So I guess the stuff you use, it works, right?
Absolutely. I can tell people it absolutely works because I applied it first to myself, and then I was able to help other people. But people understand that, and when people hear, my story and hear my situation, they know that, okay, this is somebody who, he's been there, so we can identify with that.
So he's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Angelo, let's move a little forward. We don't want to take up too much of people's time. Now they're busy trying to make money so they can pay off their credit bills.
I know that's right.
So tell us now. We're going to talk today about 5 things that debt collectors don't want you to know. What are those 5 things?
Okay, well, let's preface it by saying that a lot of people are sued in court by debt collectors, and debt collectors are basically people or companies who buy other people's debt, and they may be, companies that most people are familiar with, Midland Funding, Portfolio Recovery, LVNV, companies like that. They're known as debt buyers, and they buy people's debt for pennies on the dollars, and then when they go after you and you don't pay them, they end up suing you in court. And one of the things that most people don't realize is that when they sue them in court, these debt buyers have to prove 2 things. One, that they own the debt, and that you owe the debt. And so from my experience, a lot of them cannot do that. And so the reason for their lawsuits is to hope that you don't show up. You get nervous or afraid that you don't show up. So the very first thing that debt buyers don't want you to know is that when they first sue you, that it is important for you to answer the complaint. When you get that letter in the mail saying you're being sued by ABC debt collector through this law firm, right? And you have 14 to 30 days to respond. They do not want you to answer that complaint. They want you to do nothing, put it on the side, because if you don't do anything, they automatically get a default judgment, which means they don't have to prove you owe the debt or they own the debt. So they don't want you to answer the complaint. So it's important that everyone who ever gets a lawsuit from a debt buyer answer the complaint.
Now, when you say answer the complaint, how do you do that?
Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, the complaint is laying out who they say you owe, how much they say you owe, and basically some little other things that they're saying about the debt. And all you have to do when you answer that complaint, because number one, what you have to understand is if you, let's just say you had, for an example, you had a Capital One card, credit card for, let's say, $5,000, and for whatever reason it went to a charge off, you didn't pay it. For whatever reason, something came up, you didn't pay it, right? So you owe Capital One $5,000 based on the contract you signed and getting that credit card. Now, when they sell that debt to a debt buyer, that debt buyer has to prove that you owe him or her the debt. Now, you know that you've never had any dealings with them.
Right, so but let me just interject. I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying then, like, say, example, like Capital One, someone owes Capital One $5,000,
mm-hmm.
and the Capital One's going to sell the debt to someone else? Why would they do that?
They will actually do that because they get to the point where they realize they may not get the money from you, that you will not end up paying them. So usually after 180 days of non-payment to them, which is like 6 months or something like that, they charge it off. It's known as a charge off. They write it off as a profit and loss to their company, put it on your credit report saying that you didn't pay this debt. Now, by law, once they charge it off and they sell it to another a debt buyer, right, they can't go after that money anymore. So therefore, they get there from taxes, writing it off. They get their little whatever they get from that, and whoever they sell it to, they get a piece of that money too. But they can no longer collect from you. So the reason why they'll just charge it off, because number one, they already feel you're not going to pay them anyway, so they don't want to keep going after you. They rather give it to somebody else to go after you.
So when I get that complaint, do I go to court? What do I do to respond?
Yes, because the complaint is going to come from your local county court. And so you would have to go there, go to the county clerk in that courthouse, show them the paper that you want to answer this complaint. They'll give you the papers that you need or whatever, and you would just fill it out. Basically, in a nutshell, again, because I'm not a lawyer, this is not legal advice. This is information from being in the business over 10 years. All right. So basically, you're basically responding that complaint by saying that you don't feel you don't believe that you owe this debt buyer this money because you've never had any dealings with him or them, whoever it is. So you can't really know how you owe them, not Capital One, but how you owe them this money.
Right. So what you're saying is, because of the fact that Capital One sells your paper debt to a third party, the third party is coming after you, but you and the third party have no relationship.
Exactly. And so they have to prove, the burden of proof then becomes their burden to prove that you actually owe them the debt and they own the debt, which you have no idea whether they own the debt or not.
Okay, so before we go to the next stage on that, let me just ask you this. How can people get in contact with you?
They can reach out to me by calling my office at 973-910-1184. That's 973-910-1184. We'll give them a free consultation at our office or over the phone, depending on where they're calling from.
Outstanding. So the first step is respond to the complaint. What's step number 2?
Step number 2 is after you respond to the complaint and now you get a court date and you're going to show up to court, one of the things that when you're in court that you want them to show is that they have the original contract or the purchase agreement. Now, the reason why you want to ask for that is because we do know in this business that the original creditor never gives them the original contract, which they actually need to prove the case. And whatever, they usually give them just one page called the bill of sale, which just really doesn't outline everything in the contract. So therefore, in order for them to prove that they have the contract, they own the debt, they need to have the purchase agreement that was sold to them. And not only that, but we do know that when whatever information the original creditor gives to the third party debt buyer, they also let them know that whatever we're giving you, we're not telling you that everything we're giving you is accurate. So yeah, absolutely. So the judge, the lawyer really can't go before the judge and say, listen, we have the bill of sale here, but the original creditors told us that we don't know if everything is accurate. So, but we have this. They can't do that in court. The judge will throw it out. So
in other words, the debt collector has a bill of sale or an alleged bill of sale based upon the principle of assignment. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, by principle of assignment, yes. But it doesn't outline everything about the contract. It doesn't outline, comes to our third thing, the underlying part of the debt. So that purchase agreement, that contract is very important.
Okay, so once again, it goes back to education and having the ability or the interest to read a contract.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now, and so in a way, the contract was between you, let's say in Capital One, it wasn't between you and this third party.
Right.
And because of that, you're saying that this third party may not be privy to is not privy to the original contract. It's coming to court against you on so-called frivolous grounds.
Right. And not only that, Bill, but sometimes these debt buyers buy from another debt buyer that brought from another debt buyer that finally brought from that got it from the original contract, the original creditor. So therefore, if that's the case, they have to go back and each one has to prove that they own the debt.
Oh my God. Okay.
And this is some of the reasons why they don't want you to actually ever show up to court. That's the strength. I mean, they file lawsuits by the hundreds every day, these debt buyers, right? And they know that the majority of the people just won't show up because they feel that they can't win or they're nervous about being in court or maybe they're not willing to say or they can't afford a lawyer. So they just file these things knowing that they don't always have the evidence to prove it. And they just file them and if they get that default judgment, that's all they want.
Okay, so now you have the first step is to respond. Second step is you have to have a contract. What's the third step?
Now, the third step is, which goes to the contract, right? They have to prove the underlying debt. So they got to show not only do we have the contract or not only do we have it, but what is the underlying debt, which is actually shows everything about the contract, which means it breaks down the term of the contract. It breaks down late charges, breaks down finance charges, and a few things like that. I can't think of it all right now, but it kind of breaks down what the agreement is in the contract. And they need to show that, because if they own the debt, they got to know all that. If they say they own the debt, they got to know all of that. And all that is found typically in the original contract. It's not found in a bill of sale, or, bill of sale, these papers that they get, stuff like that, but it's found in the contract. So the third thing is understand that, hey, this is what I need to know. What was the, how much were the late charges? What was the due date? What was the term of the contract? They got to know all this, because the consumer has the right to ask for all that, because if you say you own the debt, you got to know all this.
So now, in the rare case, when would a third-party debt collector have the contract?
And right now, and speaking to a lot of lawyers, now I spoke to, even the lawyer that works with my company, debt lawyers, consumer lawyers, and basically from information, 99% of the time, they don't ever have the contract. I mean, in the case where they actually may have the contract, they still have other things they have to do. But in most cases, they don't. And so typically what happens is when the consumer actually shows up to court, the lawyers or the debt buyers have other tricks. So what they might say, they might postpone or schedule another date, hoping that the consumer won't show up. They'll file for that because they don't have evidence. Right? And they know that if you're coming strong and wait for the evidence, they'll try to postpone it. I've seen a couple of clients of mine who actually went to court ready to do these things and actually got the judge, because the debt buyer couldn't prove it or they kept postponing it, the judge just threw it out.
Right,
my clients
right.
was determined to go. Whatever court date was set, they were determined to go.
Okay, so we have respond, know the contract, and understand the underlying terms of the contract. What's step number 4?
Now, step number 4 is the consumer has the right to ask them for a live witness to show up. Someone from, let's say, Capital One to show up and testify that they sold this company the debt, and bring in a contract or everything like that, or it comes up in court and says that, yes, I work for Capital One. This is how we move everything, our files work and everything like that. And this is how we assigned it to this particular debt buyer. Now, companies don't do that. Capital One and Verizon, all of them, they don't send live. They don't have time. They don't want to send live people to go to testify. Every day they'll be sending them, so they don't do that. And because they don't have a live witness to buffet their case, a lot of times, again, these cases, when people do show up, get thrown out. Now, here's what they do try. We found out, instead of having a live witness, a lot of times they'll have an affidavit, affidavit of somebody testifying on written form that, okay, yes, this is the case. But most lawyers will defend that by telling her, listen, in cases like this, an affidavit is really not good because we can't cross-examine an affidavit. So how could that be considered a good testimony or good evidence if we can't cross-examine that? So in cases where...
isn't that similar to like having a statement notarized?
It's similar to that, and that works good when you're talking about small claims court. You ever watch like Judge Judy and things like that?
Yes.
Sometimes people come in and the person can't show up, and they'll have an affidavit of a person who signs that this is what we testify. They'll use that in court for cases like that. But like what they consider professional cases, like these companies coming in, they won't do that. You can argue those affidavits to be thrown out.
Okay, so we got that. Interesting stuff, man. Interesting. And now what's the last step?
And so the last step, of course, what they don't want you to know, that if the case gets thrown out, if the consumer wins the case, they then have the right to turn around and sue that debt collector for basically falsely accusing them of owing the debt that they did not owe, and for putting it on their credit report saying they owed the debt, in which they could not prove in court they did owe the debt, or the phone calls that they was giving them. A consumer can then turn around and sue the debt buyer or the debt collector for falsely claiming that they owed something that they did not owe.
Okay, and how often does that happen?
It doesn't happen a lot, but and the only reason why I say that because most people, the majority of people don't even get that far. they don't, well, usually those who actually go through that 5-step process, so to speak, those are the ones that turn around and sue, that they'll get a lawyer or something like they'll sue. But most people don't do that because a lot of times they don't even get past the first step of answering the complaint. So it's not a big thing, And because it's not a big thing, that's why these debt buyers keep doing what they're doing. Because if enough people sued them if they failed in court, they would slow down on, just filing bogus lawsuits.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we go through this 5-step process. We have not to sue. But how does our credit get restored? What process we go through for that?
Now, that actually comes when you win the case as well, or when you're suing them. One of the things they have to do is remove any item that they have on your credit report stating that you owe this particular debt.
Who is they? Who's they?
The debt buyer itself. Start with the debt buyer who's suing you. So let's say if it's Midland Funding and they lose the case, they got to go back to the 3 credit reporting agency and say, we need you guys to remove this off this client's or this consumer's credit report.
And how do you know that they do that? What type of safeguard do you have?
But what happens is you can actually, if you have like credit monitoring, Credit Karma, it usually takes about 30 days once it's told to the credit bureaus to remove it. And you can actually follow that by getting updated copies of your credit report. It'll show after 30 days that those trade lines are no longer there.
Well, my question goes to the fact, how can you enforce the fact, how can you be sure of the fact that these third-party debt collectors will do what they're supposed to do?
Okay, one, when you sue them, it'll actually be in there when you're suing them and the judge awards you whatever monetary damages, for them putting it on there. It'll also stipulate that this must be removed. Otherwise, they can, pay more of a penalty if they don't have it removed. So you have the backing of the court. So
you're saying, make this clear, the debt collector is obligated, but he's not forced to do it unless he sued. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, he's obligated to remove it, but if you sue him, he has to remove it. Otherwise, he has to pay damages, more penalty damages, money damages for not removing it.
Right. So my question is, what's going to make him do that without the threat of suit?
Well, typically, if it's always going to come down to, most of the times, a threat of lawsuit because they're afraid of that. It's come down. Now, sometimes if you're just disputing things and you're asking the debt buyer, now we get into something a little different, you ask the debt buyer just to verify the information that he owns, that there's certain things you're looking for. Some of them will just remove it just because they know they don't have it and they don't want any litigations down the road. So a lot of times you can just get them to remove it just on knowing how, just on knowing what to ask them in letters. When you write them letters and things like that, they'll see that you're somebody who actually knows that, this is important for what they need to do.
Okay, so those are the five steps, the 5 things they don't want you to know. And could you tell us again, Angelo, how can we get in contact with you?
Yes, if anyone wants to get in contact with me, the Faithful Credit Group, you can call my office at 973-910-1184. We are open Monday through Fridays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We open on Saturdays, but they are by appointments only. So it's 973-910-1184. And
I understand that you not only are you the credit doctor, but you're an author as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in 2009, after going through the situation I had with my bad credit and after repairing it, I actually wrote a book from the things that I've learned through the process called How to Repair Your Credit Legally, What the Debt Collectors Don't Want You to Know. And it actually breaks down some other things that I put in there that the debt collectors don't want you to know. How to get them to stop calling you.
No, wait, don't give
I'm not going to break it down. But there's a lot of things in the book that you definitely would love to want to read and find out.
Yeah, we're going to give away all the golden eggs.
No. So absolutely, if you're interested in getting the book, you can actually call my office too. We can get you the book as well. So
now are you available for public speaking engagements and things like that?
Yes, if you're interested in bringing us in for a workshop or a seminar, anything like that, we're definitely open for that. You can use the same number, 973-910-1184. Just let us know your business, your church, or whatever you would like for us to come in. Schools, we do schools as well. And we do travel in and out of the state. That's not a problem. But we would definitely be interested in, educating your people.
Very good, very good. Well, we spent an enjoyable time together. We don't want to take up too much of our creditors or our people's time because they're busy working. But is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we close out?
Well, again, I just like to say, I do have a radio show. Anyone, that comes out every Monday night from 8 to 9 p.m. on jimsradio.net. That's Jims, Jems radio.net. Also can be heard on 91.7 FM, 91.7 FM every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. called The Credit Repair Show. And last but not least, we just want you to know that you do not have to live with bad debt. There is something you can do about it.
And another amazing thing I forgot to mention is that you're national, right?
Yes, we're across the country. We have clients out there in Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas. I mean, we're definitely national.
All right, very good. So other than the fact you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a radio host, let's just say we'll leave it at that and wait for the next one to tell us what else you are, okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You have Angelo, the Credit Doctor, and this is Bill Jordan with another edition of Keeping America Beautiful. Thanks for joining us.